Hey, look at that. We're live. Welcome to Recovering Addict. I'm LT. Hold on a sec as we get this going.
Hi, I'm Aubrey.
No, she has to do it. Put her camera on her camera and let her click it.
Do I say my name too?
No, just click it. This is for the recording.
Oh.
You want to click it too?
No, I'm kidding. I just kind of wanted to because look, is there a magnet on that?
Yeah.
Yes. It's the snap.
It's the satisfying.
Yeah.
Cool. So I'm LT. I'm an alcoholic addict. 2 times in my life, I've hit rock bottom. Once in the early 2000s with meth. Got a burglary, year in jail, 4 months in a halfway house, all that kind of good stuff. Got scared straight. Ended up doing good until I became an alcoholic in my late 30s. Didn't go to rehab until I was 40. And then 4 years later, here we are. I've got over 4 years clean and sober. So woohoo for me.
Hell yeah.
And my wife and my kids and the community around me, because I'm one of those that just destroy. I'm a wrecking ball.
Yeah.
When I am. So if you want to know a little bit about a recovering addict, watch this.
Hi, I'm Aubrey, and I'm a recovering addict. And before I found this program, my life was jail.
Not that kind of commercial. Recovering Addict is not your typical recovery program. This one actually works. We work on your bio. That means your body. And your psycho, which is your mind. And social. And that's dealing with relationships. So if you or someone you love...
Wait, what about spiritual?
Oh yeah, we work on that too.
Recovering Addict, Relapse Prevention Center. Visit our website at recoveringaddict.org or call us 801-695-3085.
Boom. So that's Recovering Addict. We're a relapse prevention program here in Ogden, Utah, 155 14th Street. And guess what? We are absolutely free. If you need support, you just show up on a Monday, Wednesday, or a Friday at 6 to 8. We work out for the first hour. The second hour, we sit in group therapy sessions. We are certified relapse prevention therapists from the Terrence Gorski model, and we do good work. We have a really good high success rate, which is really cool. So I don't know if you guys even knew that's what Recovering Addict is. And then RA Studios is the sister company, kind of like Tosa has set up for theirs, that helps keep that free for all our clients.
Nice.
Pretty cool.
Right.
We have a special guest today. We got Clean Slate Utah in the house. Destiny and Charlotte are here with us.
Woo woo.
Yeah.
Be my own cheerleader.
Somebody says clappity clappity yay. We got some people tuned into our live stream. So go ahead and introduce yourself. We'll start with you, Destiny, and then introduce yourself, and then we'll get into your story.
I'm Destiny Garcia. I'm the executive director of Clean Slate Utah.
I'm Charlotte Waterbury. I am a case manager for Clean Slate Utah.
What is Clean Slate Utah?
We're a nonprofit organization that was formed to raise awareness around the Clean Slate law. We help people determine if they're going to be eligible for the law, and if they're not going to be eligible for automatic clearance, we will help them with the petition-based process, and also we offer pardon support as well.
Oh, very cool.
And we're cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The way I like to think of it too is that my job and my goal is to empower you to get through the process on your own. So I can't do it for you, but I will be your cheerleader. I will support you. I'll hold your hand and get you across the finish line.
Oh, very
We
cool.
do not have any lawyers on staff, so we don't do it for you. We help you do it for yourself.
That's way cool. So you said it was created for awareness?
So in 2019, the Clean Slate law passed in Utah, which automatically expunges some misdemeanor low-level offenses.
Felonies?
Misdemeanor low-level offenses.
I was just like, get my charge, get it.
So what that entails is the only Class A that qualifies would be simple drug possession. And then most misdemeanors, B's and C's, all infractions. No violent crimes, no domestic violence crimes, nothing that has a victim in the case. So really the lowest hanging fruit.
Is that the expungement or?
That's the automatic clearance.
Oh, just clears. It just wipes it off.
Automatically clear. So it shifts the burden from the individual to the government.
Yeah.
And automatically expunge it off your record. The
Okay.
problem with that is there was no direct notification requirements. So the government will not let anybody know if they qualify or if this is going to be erased from their record. So Clean Slate Utah was formed to raise awareness around that law as well.
So you were created to raise awareness, but not only raise awareness, kind of come up with your own process and system of what the interpretation of the whole law even meant, kind of a thing.
Well, there's oftentimes as people are coming in, some of the records do qualify for automatic clearance, some of their low levels, but most times people also have the felony records or they have other misdemeanors that don't fit in that bucket to automatically be expunged. And so we wanted to offer a service that will help them get through whatever they have on their record, whatever avenue that is, and help them walk out record free. That's
awesome. Well, you heard it here, y'all. We are going to talk about how to clear records. So if you are having trouble getting a job, rent, right? If you just, I was thinking about all the benefits of clearing your record was, and like self-esteem popped into my head for some reason.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I'll pass the cop today.
Yeah.
Honestly, for me, I think that was one of the biggest factors because I had been hired by Destiny. I had a great job, but it just looms over your head.
Yeah.
Like anything, like even volunteering for your kid's school, going to get like an Uber drive. Like there are things that background check that you wouldn't imagine background check. And it sucks having to like explain your background, having to explain that you're in active addiction. That's my story. And I get to share it with who I choose, right? Being forced to share that story for jobs or for housing, it just sucked for me. And that's how I feel about my story in general. That's something I choose to share with people that I trust, as opposed to being forced to explain it to people so I can hopefully get a better job.
Go up one more on that comment, Zylan. Facebook user, that says Facebook because you're in our private group. And if you want to stay anonymous, totally cool with that. But if you want your name known, you can jump over to the page or the YouTube channel. But reading your comment, it says, I'm so grateful I came across this live today. I need this right now. Awesome. We're glad you're here. And that's why we're here, is to help support, create awareness, and like break stigmas. What I love about the Utah, we'll go off channel here, but I swear, and maybe this is just my naivety, but Utah seems to be the best recovery state in the whole wide world.
I agree.
Or in the country anyway. You know what I mean?
We
like
have tons of resources here.
And it seems like not only do we have a ton of resources, but none of us are like trying to compete. Like, oh, I'm better, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
We're just connecting and making it happen. I get to see that inner working as I do the film stuff, and it's just a beautiful thing. So I'm glad you're here. So if you need anything, drop in the comments, ask questions anytime through this podcast, and we will answer them because we are live right now.
Yeah, I would honestly say there were so many times in my life that I did just AA, or I did like 1 foot in a program, right? And then when I fully embraced all the things, like I get excited to go to events. I get to see all my friends. I get to see you. I get to see you, Sarah. Like I get excited to go to events now. Whereas in the past, I was like dragging my butt to a meeting and I hated every second. It's so different, but I've never experienced recovery in other states, but I know that this state is incredible.
Yeah.
Even down in St. George and Moab, like it is a huge community and it's awesome.
Yeah. I'm a shit. Oh, go ahead.
Can I throw a number out there?
100%.
Speaking of Utah, 1 in 4 people in Utah have a criminal record.
1 in 4 have
1 in
a
4
criminal
people
record.
in Utah have a criminal record, and 50% of our children have at least one parent that has a criminal record.
Really?
So it's a lot more common than what people think.
And some of us parents are having kids with charges just, racking up as we speak. I know who I'm talking about.
Right? Weird. It's hard. And it's hard too once you do catch a charge, right? Like my heart feels for that, just because then you change the way you think about yourself as a human, right? Like I thought of myself as broken, that it changed my thought process about, I was just a criminal, and I thought of myself as a criminal for years.
Yeah.
And that you're stigmatizing yourself.
Huge.
So I really think you have to break through that barrier. Even if you did just catch a charge, that's not all you are. That's not your personality. Is not that you're a criminal. It's just something that you've experienced that you have to push through.
Yeah.
It's common. We see it all the time. People come in and they made mistakes when they're 18, 19, 20, 21, and they're 40 and they're getting turned down for a job, and so we see it all the time. I know I'm not the same person I was when I was 19. I'm sure you're not the same person you was.
Thank the Lord.
Yeah.
Whew. Yeah. That was
It's
bad.
unfortunate. It sticks with you. A record is black and white.
Yeah. 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 When I was 19, 20, man, I was just getting into crank back then.
Oh yeah. And you were just untouchable.
Oh yeah.
I mean, at that point in my life, things hadn't gotten bad, right? Like I was still kind of enjoying the party life. I mean, granted, it was getting reckless, but I still thought I was having fun and that I was, in charge of this situation, which was so far from the truth. But that was through like the early part of my 20s, right? Thinking I had this on lock. I could party like a rock star and then still go to work and thought I was functional. Yeah. For all those years, thought I was just living it up.
Mine was still go to work to whatever job I had that week. I told you all I worked on base, right? And to get that, to work on F-22s, you have to have a secret clearance. And so I had to fill out this huge packet, and it was a miracle that it even went through, right? And it was like, list all your jobs. And I had to go back like years on this because there's a secret clearance of the federal government. And I was like, I don't even know. So I went to wherever and researched myself. And I was like, oh, I had that job?
Yeah.
Oh, I
don't
worked there
remember
for
at
a
all.
week? Yeah.
Gracious. That would make me so nervous trying to just apply for clearance.
Yeah.
I would be
Oh, it was
so
scary.
anxious. Yeah.
I wouldn't do
Talking about the self-esteem part of it,
Mhm.
and intellectually, always intellectually intimidated by around other people who had finished high school even, or
Mhm.
had an associate's degree even, Matt, and even you start climbing the ladder higher than that. And I was just this dumb tweaker, 10th grade dropout. But so what go ahead.
Oh, I think it breaks on your self-esteem because every job you apply for, you have to put it down there. So when you don't have to do that anymore,
Yeah.
you feel better.
Yeah.
You feel better. You walk better. You smile brighter. You just feel better.
Then the interview process, if
If it
which
gets
you
brought
wouldn't-
up, you have
Ugh.
to say something.
Yeah.
Well, not just for me. It was so much. I didn't know when to talk about it, right? Like I knew
Yeah.
I had to disclose my charges, but I didn't want to stab myself in the foot right away, right? Like I want you to buy into me a little bit so I stand a chance at this job. So then
Mhm.
I was playing this game of, do I tell them after the first interview? Do I tell them when they accept me? Like,
Do I lie instead?
right? See if they
Wait
are
to
going to
get
catch
found
it.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do they really check?
Right.
Yeah. And then
How
you're
far
just
do they
always-
check? How
yeah.
far back do they check?
Mhm.
Like it.
Then you're just living dirty again.
Yeah.
you
Oh,
know?
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Goodness.
Absolutely.
So that was Morgan that said that. Morgan Green. Hi, Morgan.
Hey,
Long
girl.
time no talk. Glad you're here. When I did finally end up getting my clearance, I went and applied for a job at Walmart just to see. And they had the kiosk things at the time. I think it was just becoming noon. So I'm filling out all this stuff and hit submit. And it was like almost instantly. Nope.
No way.
Do not apply again for 1 year.
Okay.
Because of my
never
record.
mind. Never
you know?
mind. Oh, I got a job in Walmart for like with a third party agency, and I sat down on the first day and I was like, I can't go into Walmart. And they're like, what? That's weird. I'm like, I have a lot of thefts on my background. I'm not allowed in Walmart. So I'm gonna have to separate from the company. And it was not great.
I ran into that in my recovery, going to get a job and then they run the background and let you go.
Yeah.
Or you have to go apply at these retail jobs where you were shoplifting every single day for years at.
Yeah,
like,
I'm not
okay,
allowed to go
I
back.
got a little weight on me now, but they probably still have my picture in the back room.
Am I here to
it's
make
such a-
amends or get a job?
It's such a barrier.
Maybe we can do both.
Getting employment is such a barrier when you have a criminal record.
Yeah. So what's your story with recovery, Dustin?
I found recovery in 2017. I was arrested during Operation Rio Grande downtown.
What's that?
Oh my.
You don't know about Operation Rio Grande?
Mm.
You're clearly from Ogden.
Oh, yeah. Is this Salt Lake?
This
Yeah.
is in Salt Lake.
Oh,
So it's when
okay.
the
Yeah,
government had this mass operation to clean up the open drug market area downtown.
It was really bad. Operation Rio Grande. I was kind of in my heyday through this point, and you would drive up or walk up and just be surrounded by
Mhm.
people very, very openly. They're negotiating deals. It was crazy, and it was just so easy. That was where I would go every single day. So when this happened, when Operation Rio Grande happened, it was like military force crackdown on this one specific block right by Gateway North Temple. I luckily wasn't involved in it, but as a person that was suffering from my substance abuse at that time, it was frustrating. I was
Mhm.
mad because it just took a
Got in the way.
huge amount of resources
Yeah.
off the market, off the table.
Yeah.
And it's not like those people went away. Like I just had to search for my dealers again,
Mhm.
right? Destiny, when I found out she actually got picked up in that, it was like, it wasn't.
You guys were friends back then too?
No, I just, it
Oh, you just
affected
found out later.
it
Okay.
affected me. I was just very
It took
aware of
me a
it.
couple days because I thought I looked good. I thought these cops are not going to think I'm an addict, right? Walking past them thinking I look good. I don't look like an addict. I had no teeth in my mouth. My delusional, right?
Right.
But I was finally arrested sleeping in a park on North Temple. I didn't have any shoes on. Extremely dope sick. And I remember like years before this, I'd get cycled in and out of jail, shoplifting charges, low level misdemeanor charges. And I would go into jail like extremely ill, abscesses, extremely ill. And I was never offered any type of program. But
Mm.
because of Operation Rio Grande was so huge, it also came with government funding for more treatment beds and to get people help and off the street.
Also, it's thought out at least.
Yeah. And so because of that, I was offered treatment at Odyssey House. I was offered to go into the drug court program, which I accepted and ran with it once it was offered to me.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Pull up that comment underneath Mom's. I have a charge from 6 years ago that is so embarrassing. It was a horrible accident that I hate knowing it is on my record.
Yep.
Next question. A misdemeanor. I don't even know where to start. Well, then you tuned
You
into
know
the
where to
exact,
start.
That's me.
like-
Hi, that's me.
You've already started. You just don't know it yet.
For sure.
So Morgan, after this, hit us up and well, I'll connect you with these two and we will start that process. And if it's just a misdemeanor 6 years ago, that sounds like something that
Yeah,
might fall into that 19.
It's hard to
2019.
answer every specific question without
Sure.
looking at somebody's record because they
Right.
might be wanting to get that felony or that misdemeanor off, but they might have other ones from previously.
Yeah.
And Utah has a limit on how many can be expunged.
Okay.
That's why we offer pardon support. There is an avenue for everyone, no matter what the charge is or the severity of the charge. It's just we'd have to look up that specific person, look up their record, and give them advice on not legal advice because we're not
Suggestions.
lawyers.
Yeah.
Because we're not lawyers, and
Yeah.
talk about what their next steps could be.
Awesome. For what I know about Morgan, she went through our recovering addict program, and that's probably she didn't have very many criminal charges. If
Yeah.
I remember correctly.
Yeah, we would love to help.
She said, "Yes, thank you."
We can kind of tell everyone a little bit about our process too. So
Mhm.
if there's more people watching, we have a fairly streamlined process. So
Yeah.
we are a very small team, but we are starting to get pretty good at just the way we operate and the way that we function daily.
Yeah, I'm definitely still gonna take you up on the offer of
I'd love to.
my
Keep
felony.
saying that.
Yeah.
I know. Like we're all just as soon as we separate, we're just like
Yeah.
busy.
I mean, it's hard though too. It is overwhelming. It is a
Mhm.
big process. And
Yeah.
I mean, I have people calling, on a daily basis that are just stressed out. It's a stressful environment. It feels intimidating by design, right?
Yeah.
So it's not easy to get through, but you're not doing it alone. And I think that's what makes it possible is that you don't have to walk through this alone. I had actually started trying to expunge my record twice prior to going to treatment, and I had quit both times. Like I was still in active addiction, but especially 2 back-to-back retail thefts, I couldn't get a job anywhere.
No.
Work from home jobs didn't trust me with their laptop.
Yeah.
So I had applied to BCI, and then I just kind of gave up on it. I didn't understand what happened after that. I just couldn't sit down and even do the research I needed to. So it's just a matter of having someone that's already been through that'll walk you through it.
And to try to put it in a really simple way for you. Like it's
Yeah.
really simple to do it and get it done. But like Charlotte said, it's by design to make you fail.
Yeah.
You go on the government websites and the language alone is intimidating. Everybody on my staff has gone through it or knows how to do it. And they can make it really simple to show you how to do the paperwork. It's not very complicated, but it does feel overwhelming.
Yeah. So Operation Rio Grande,
Yeah. And so then I went through
you're
Odyssey.
sleeping on a park bench barefoot.
And it wasn't even a bench. It was the ground
Just
next
somewhere.
to the fence. Yeah. Yeah. And
Sick. You ran out and you ran out of gas and you just kind of
yeah, I sold my shoes the night before
oh boy.
to get more dope.
Yeah.
Right. And because I had stolen them that same day. But the cops got there before he did. It was this huge operation. I went to Odyssey House. I graduated Odyssey House. And as I transitioned out of Odyssey House, I went into a sober living program. Salt Lake County had started a pilot program that allowed for people to go into a sober living home funded for up to 6 months so they wouldn't have to go back to the street. So I was the first one who successfully completed an inpatient program and transitioned out to use that sober living voucher. And because of that, it prompted this huge press release in my house. Noella Sudbury was working at the Salt Lake County mayor's office at the time. And she's like, do you want to do this press release? And I'm like, no. She's like, are you sure? Every week after drug court, she'd come back and ask me, and she would stare at me and stare at me. And I'm like, why is this lady staring at me? I finally said yes. I'm like, let me ask my family. And so I talked to my family, and they're like, how would you feel if I went on the news and told everybody that I'm an IV heroin user, that I'm a thief, that I did all these things? And they're like, everybody we know knows that. So
It's not news to
yeah.
us.
So my son said, I would be disappointed if you didn't take this opportunity and you didn't
Oh,
do it.
Good for him.
I thought it was one simple press release, but that changed my life. I met all the elected officials. I met the mayor, the speaker of the house.
Oh wow.
When I woke up that morning, news stations were waiting outside of the house for this news release.
Oh my goodness.
And at first I thought they just need a face for Operation Rio Grande. Like these people don't care. It's the government. They don't
Yeah,
care.
yeah.
That turned into the mayor of the county, Ben McAdams, offering me a job as the front desk receptionist in the mayor's office.
Whoa.
Because I couldn't get a job.
Yeah.
He kept calling and being like, have you got a job yet? How are things going? will you come with me to speak on behalf of programs at this event? Do you want to come to this event? And I always said yes, even though I was extremely terrified, not comfortable in my own skin yet.
Sure.
I was wearing this fake mouthpiece for the teeth I was missing, you know, and I've
yeah.
been wearing it for years. It was like yellow and gross, but I still showed up and did it anyways because I was taking the opportunities in front of me, and then he offered me a job in the mayor's office.
That is awesome.
Yeah, and I worked there for 5 years.
5 years. That's
5
awesome.
years.
So Rio Grande was this military type operation
Yeah.
to clean up the state,
To
Which-
clean up the Salt Lake.
area.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I wish they would do that like in Kensington. You know, I did a
Right.
documentary down there.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Mhm.
Which I'm glad they did here because I love Utah.
Yeah.
But then to make it so, because if you're just on the outside looking in, you could get huge resentment towards the police and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff for kicking, you know, hurting.
And a lot, I mean, it's controversial, right? People
Sure.
think, and it did criminalize homelessness for a lot of
Yeah.
people. It didn't work for a lot of people like it did for me. And so it's a real controversial issue. Operation Rio Grande is in the state of Utah.
But I like that the backside because they show like, look, we're trying to do this to help, and then
Mhm.
you become the face of this help.
Yeah. And they did this pilot program for sober living, which is now a permanent program. People every single day use this voucher to go into different sober living, so they don't have to go back to their drug users, to their mom's house on a couch, you know, and they get to learn the skills. And for me, sober living was one of the big stepping stones I needed in my life.
How long did you spend in sober
I
living?
spent in sober living 8 months, about 8 months. I became the house manager there.
Very cool.
Yeah, it was great.
Awesome. So you get out 5 years. So you're 5 years with the mayor.
Yeah. So as I'm at the mayor's office, I'm getting asked to speak about, I'm the recovery person in the mayor's office. I'm getting asked to speak all these different recovery events, and I do it, and I'm doing all these recovery things, and it lights a fire under my butt. And then I go back to the mayor's office, and I loved my job at the mayor's office. It was easy. I learned everything I needed to do. I showed up and did my job, but nothing lit a fire under my ass like the recovery thing did.
Yeah.
Noella Sudbury branched out, and she wrote the Clean Slate legislation, pushed that through Utah. She started the nonprofit. She's our founder. When she started the nonprofit, she asked me to be a board member. And so I sat on the board. I was the only one with lived experience on the board. As you can tell, I'm a talker. I got this big mouth. I continue to use it.
Beautiful teeth.
Nice new teeth.
Yeah.
And so when the position arose that she was stepping down as executive director, I applied,
Oh, very
and I was
cool.
able to get the position.
That's an awesome
Yeah.
story.
Yeah. So I've been there a little over 2 years now.
Okay.
Going on my 7th year in recovery.
7 years.
Yeah.
Oh.
Huge.
During that time, I was also working part-time at Odyssey House. So I was working in the mayor's office, and I was around all these wonderful people who wrapped their arms around me and treated me with respect and love.
You can
But-
just
I'm like, I don't know what I.
handle it. There
Okay,
you
But
go.
I
Message
still
them,
needed
guys.
the raw.
There you go. Beautiful.
I still needed raw recovery in my
I'll
life.
come fix it.
I was new in
talking.
recovery, and I still needed that raw recovery in my life. So I started working at Odyssey House, the program I graduated from, every single week, to have the raw recovery in my life and to be connected with my community. And that's where I met Charlotte.
Oh snap!
Mike
Segue.
I was trying to keep going. Do you want me to keep going?
Sure.
Yeah.
And so as I was working at Odyssey House, I would tell my story all the time, every day to all the clients. I would try to inspire them. I loved working at Odyssey House, and I loved working at the mayor's office. I worked 2 jobs for over 3 years to get to where I'm at and the opportunities that rose. And that's where I met Charlotte.
Cool. Before we jump into Charlotte, let's go back and get some of these comments we got going on here. Yep, that one says, I agree that we live in a beautiful state with so much recovery at our fingertips if it is wanted. That's a good point there.
For sure.
Grateful for everyone who is doing something related to help people get their lives back. Chris Hill, what's up, brother? Glad you're here. Something he always says, and about you being 7 years clean is like, if you never mess up, I'll never catch up to you. Rio Grande started my sister Amy Griffin.
Yeah.
Amy Dashel.
Yep.
We love Amy Dashel. We work
Oh,
with
you know
her
her.
Yeah.
every single day. She works for Rosso. Amy is like,
And she is a rock
yeah,
star.
She is the rock star.
Awesome.
We have 2 days where we got arrested 2 days apart from each other. So Amy and I went through drug court together. We were in the same sober living home together. We've walked our whole journey together.
Very
Yeah.
cool. Very cool. Recovery is so cool.
It really is.
And there's something about, like you said earlier, about being excited to go to these events.
Mhm.
It's just like being involved with people who want it.
Yeah.
And then to be able to help people who are there who want it, as you know,
Mhm.
us being a little bit further along than they are.
Yeah.
And that, I don't know, that gives me more joy because it gets me out of my head and I'm not thinking about me, but I'm thinking about, you
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
other people. And it's just so rewarding.
And there's so much love at those events.
Huge.
So much love.
That's one thing. Like I almost tell everybody now, like, hey, I love you. Everybody in recovery, I love you.
Yeah.
Love you too. Love you too. It's just the gratitude of where we could have been.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
Did.
sure.
I have a reminder on my wall right there. If you look above your head, the girl in the middle, she OD'd last year, left a couple little youngsters behind, and that one got me. She was in our program for a minute, and I went to her funeral, and I was fine until I saw her son, and he was like 4, 5, and I lost it.
Yeah.
Got me, like stabbed me.
Yeah.
I had a recent one because we all have so many friends and family that have passed away, but I also found out that my ex-fiance had passed away when I was in recovery, and it just hits different. Like when you find out people that you're in it with didn't make it out, it's an overwhelming feeling. You just get even more grateful that you made it out.
Mhm.
Great. So what's your story? How's
Okay.
your life and addiction?
So my story is a bit different from Destiny's, but very common in this community. I had pretty severe mental health concerns. I had BPD. I had just started self-medicating with drugs to try to be okay, just to not be into the suicidal ideations, the self-harm. So drugs had really become the only way I knew how to function.
All right, real quick, I don't want to cut you
Yeah.
too much, but C Hill, that was his sister. I don't know if that means blood sister or not, but
Amy's everybody's sister.
do you know Chris Hill? He goes to SOAR. So SOAR is a program that's similar to mine.
Mhm.
That's just like they're south, we're north kind of a thing, but we're homies. The workout program is SOAR, is an office School of Addiction Recovery.
Yeah.
Dustin Hawkins is the founder of that one, and Frank is the CEO and stuff. So yeah,
That's right.
the little tight community we got here, and C Hill's one of my homies. Very cool. Just how connected we are.
Yeah.
But anyway, so
So I kind of did this whole cycle of like getting stable at the psych ward, right? Going to uni, getting back on meds, and then kind of being down that path for about 6 months. And then my brain would tell me that I was better, like quote unquote better, that I didn't need the medication. I didn't need, so I would stop taking them. And this happened for years. Once I stopped taking them, the drugs would come back. I would end up back on the streets. And this was like an every year thing. Like it really, I'd go to treatment, get back stabilized on meds. 6 months later, stop taking meds, crash and burn, end up on the streets, and then kind of start this all over. So that was my pattern for a decade almost. And I'd tried treatment programs. I had gone to, Journey, just the Haven, and I was not ready. I just wasn't ready to make those changes. I wasn't there yet. So when I found Odyssey, I had actually been on Facebook, trying to find a client, trying to find somebody. Through those 10 years, I had done the sex work thing, just surviving, right? Doing whatever I had to survive. So I was back on the streets at 35 years old, had no family, no friends, nothing. And I was on Facebook looking for my next client, and this person had gone to Odyssey House. And I reached out, and he was just like, when I talked to him, number one, was not interested. Number two, he had just changed. Like the way that he spoke was different. He had gone to Odyssey, he had completed Odyssey, and it didn't feel like he was giving me the jargon, the lines. Like he had truly changed as a human. So I was to a point where I was either going to try something else, or I was just going to end it, right? Just give up. So I decided to try something different, and I went to Odyssey. That was in December of 21. And for whatever reason, this time it took, I think I had just gotten, every time I went back out, it was worse, right? Every time I went back out, the psychosis got worse, the delusions, just the paranoia, the feelings of being alone, and just, it was so scary. And I was just so sick of that. And I finally, when I got to Odyssey, I just decided that I wasn't going to leave. No matter what happened, I just wasn't going to run. So I stayed. And then after about 6 months, my head started to clear, and I started finding my voice. I started being proud of who I was as a human. So I stayed in the house and I voyaged. Destiny would be there every weekend working on Sunday. And I had kind of expressed to her that I tried to clean up my record, that I couldn't get a job. And that's what I was facing when I got out. And when I got out of Odyssey, I did get a job at Hires, at a second chance employer, making onion rings at 7 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
And I just was not real happy. It just wasn't, I knew I could utilize, I knew that I wanted a career. I wanted something I could dive into.
Yeah.
And that wasn't it. So I was told by Randall and Old School Odyssey, that Destiny was looking to hire somebody. And so she reached out and gave me a temporary position.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. So how long you quit when you were about 35, you said?
Mm-hmm.
You got into recovery?
Yep.
How long had you been?
A little over 2 years. So I think 2 years, 4 months.
So did you do drugs before that in your 20s and stuff?
Oh yeah. So it was, my entire life.
Yeah.
I had started smoking crack with my father. It was just from a very young age, it was pretty normalized in my life. And then even, through high school, I was part of an organization that really kept me on the straight and narrow.
Yeah.
But as soon as I was no longer a part of that organization, I was no longer swimming for school. I just kind of went off the deep end. And then I was using it to balance, right? Especially when you have severe mental health. When you are super duper depressed, you're using uppers to do something.
Yep.
When you're super, super manic, you're using downers to be kind of, somewhere in the middle. So it was just this constant cycle of trying to fix my mental health or just be okay. Like just get out of bed and do something the day.
Wow. Yeah.
I think Charlotte knew she was going to work for Clean Slate before I even worked for Clean Slate. We would sit in the office at Odyssey House and she'd be like, I started to expunge my record. I'm going to work for Clean Slate one day. I was not even the executive director yet. I was on the board, but she's like, I'm going to work for Clean Slate when I get out.
Really?
Yeah. And then here we are a year
Manifest.
later, I'm in Clean Slate and I'm bringing Charlotte on.
It's been
It's
been a really amazing experience for sure. Well, and I think with Destiny, she kind of got this opportunity and she embraced it, right? And so she passed that opportunity on to me. And I have wholeheartedly embraced that because I see the opportunity, right? I've never had a job where I can have a car. Like I bought a car and paid it off. Like I've never had a stable income that I can start saving up and maybe one day own a home and, pay rent. I've never had that. I've always been working minimum wage jobs and barely scraping by. So when this opportunity presented itself, I saw a career, I saw a future. And beyond that, it's something that I can really get behind. Like I'm super, super passionate about it, which doesn't mean it's not work. It still feels like work.
Yeah.
But it is really cool to see what changes can happen with people. And by the time people come to clear their record, they have changed their lives so significantly that you're not even like pulling information. Like, just tell me about what you've done the past couple years.
Yeah.
Like that by itself proves that you are in a different spot and you can go in front of the board. It's super cool. It's just rad to see everybody that has really changed their life and have gotten to a different place.
Could you imagine if we all met like 6 to 10 years ago? Like,
holy cow.
No.
what kind of friends we would have been then? Like, we are
We'd
not
be robbing each other.
Yeah, it would have been awful. I was thinking about that this morning, just that today I am the friend that I want. I'm the kind of friend that I show up for people and I've never been that friend, right? Like I'm always the person that it was transactional, right? What can you give to me? Like if we're not doing dope together and you're not getting me dope, then what good are you?
Yep.
And now it's so different and I can be the human that I wanted to be. And I didn't know that kind of human existed.
Wow. That's crazy. I love it. Cause I look at you two now and I can't even picture you guys back in.
I can show you some pictures.
I can show you some videos.
Yeah.
Yeah. Garbage.
People change. People change.
People can change 100%.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I always tell people, and I say it probably every time we have a podcast, but my best gift to you two is my self-development.
Oh yeah.
My best gift to my wife, my best gift to my kids and society is me working on me and that selfish aspect right now. The time that I take for myself every morning before I get started doing anything, the breaks I take and rest and just really delve into books of, self-help nature, kind of that kind of stuff is making me the better person I am now. So what are you guys doing right now? Cause you got 3 years under your belt?
A little over 2.5.
A little over 2.5. You're about 7. I'm about 4.
It's huge.
Yeah. What do you guys do? How do you maintain this? Because it once you're stable, you start making an income, your credit scores kind of start going up. People start trusting you, but we still got this habitual emotional wanting to hide and run. What do you guys do to work on yourselves? Like,
Oh, Jesus.
A lot.
I mean, yeah, I think we both, well, I'll let Charlotte speak for herself. I mean, you got to still have boundaries, right? And you still, when I go and speak at things like this and I do events and things like this, that's what gets me going. It lights a fire under my butt and it keeps me going. I mean, it is work, but I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. And helping the next person, I love doing that as well. And when I'm not doing this stuff, I don't do anything. I'm a homebody.
Yeah.
I want to be home and not leave. I don't want to answer my phone. I need that time to myself for me and my daughter.
Yeah.
Like I need that away time to do nothing at all.
Yep.
So I think that's what I do. If that was something.
That's
That's huge.
So for me, I do, I still do therapy, right? I still do very specifically trauma therapy, because I took away the drugs and, worked on the substance use issues. And then 2 years out, I realized that there was this huge amount of trauma that was affecting my daily life that if I did not work on it was going to send me back. So I do therapy every week. I have a recovery coach through you, Sarah, who I will never be able to say enough about you, Sarah, because my recovery coach is just a homie that supports me. Like whether it's an instance of use or whether I just need to vent and cry or whatever it is, like she's amazing and just supports me. And so I have my recovery coach, I have a therapist, I have Destiny. And I don't say that lightly. Destiny, because of her recovery and where she's at in life, has become my mentor and also best friend, right? Her recovery is the most important thing about this organization. If there are times that I'm struggling and the stress is becoming too much, Destiny will talk to me about it and say, okay, what are you going to do this week to take care of yourself? Because especially with the mental health struggle, you have to be hyper aware of what your brain's doing and what your emotional state is. So I take mental health days. On the weekends, I also manage a sober living. So I take care of those responsibilities and then I sit and read. But I do.
Charlotte calls me out too. We
Good.
call each other out constantly.
We have to, though. I mean, there are times when we don't realize we're so stressed out, we're getting involved. And it's super, super important. We kind of have the ability to almost like encounter each other and speak to each other like we did at Odyssey, right? Like, hey, the way you handled this was not great, which is really, really incredible because then we can keep improving.
Yep.
And that's what's super important. I was so worried that I would get stagnant in recovery, that I would just get to a place where I was comfortable because I think I was getting there, right? Like I was stable, I was waking up in a good mood. And I just knew for me, if I didn't keep moving forward, that I could go all the way backwards. So that progress is huge for me too.
Yeah. So to take away from that, if anybody's watching and listening, that I always looked up to like heroes in recovery, my counselor when I first got into it, but it's not a process that's just like, oh, I've arrived. It's a continual process. And then I love what you said, surrounding yourself with people who are going to tell you the truth. And that's what we need, especially, and another beautiful thing in recovery is not only wanting people to be able to talk truthfully to, but to hear the truth from, and to be able to, even if it pisses you off in the moment,
right?
To be able to go chew on it.
Good place.
And you come back and you're better for it.
Yeah.
There's a proverb that says, slaps from a friend are better than kisses from an enemy. And that's what that's talking about,
Yeah. And people who love you are going to tell you the truth.
Exactly.
The way you recept that and whatever's going on in your life at the time, you may not see that. But if somebody loves you, they're going to call you out on your bullshit.
100%.
They're going to call you out on your bullshit.
100%. Yeah.
There have only been a few times in the past 2 years that Destiny's had to literally be like, Char, slow down and think about what you just said. And there's always a tone. Destiny gets a tone when it's something that is, when it's a big deal. Yeah. When it's something that I'm not holding boundaries. Or when I first started doing this sober living thing, I did get, a client that I was, just thought she was so similar to me that I had this connection with her. There was a problem there, right? And of course, nothing inappropriate, but my boundaries had come down just slightly, right? Where I had shared part of my experience and it just wasn't, that's not what you do when you're staff, and being staff at a sober living or in this recovery field is really hard unless you have great boundaries. And it was the first time experiencing that I was so concerned about this person. It was putting my life and my job in jeopardy because I was so worried about what was happening to this human. And that conversation with Destiny sucked. Like I called her and she just called me out so hardcore, and it's what I needed. I didn't see it happening until it was too late, but I was able to pull back and talk to my support, talk to my bosses, and figure out a solution before it became a problem.
Mhm.
But I didn't realize that it had happened. So I needed Destiny to tell me this is happening and it's a problem. I feel like our friends and our community are so valuable in that. Like it's the
Mhm.
most important thing to me is the honesty and calling me out.
Yeah, and that situation wasn't a clean slate work related in situation. It was a friend to friend situation.
I'm your friend.
Yeah, it had nothing to do with our jobs together. But it was something that I was seeing, and if you love somebody, you call them out on their bullshit.
Yeah, 100%. We were reading last night. We're going through a Terrence Gorski book on step 4. I got about 3 or 4 clients going through step 4 right now, and it talks about denial creeping in.
Mhm.
Like we're blind to denial, and
Yeah.
he made the correlation to breathing. We don't ever think about breathing until there's no oxygen,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
kind of how it goes, you know.
Yeah.
I think you ran out of oxygen on that one, and Destiny was like, "Here,
Yeah, and Charlotte, like,
let me put the mask on you."
she was leading with her heart. She only wanted to do what was right.
Yeah.
But in doing that, I was
Mhm.
seeing things she wasn't seeing. Like,
Sure.
her intentions was to help and love, and
Yep.
and that was it. You know,
Yep.
she wasn't going in it with bad intentions or bad thoughts or bad feelings. But sometimes when you go into things with good intentions,
I've learned the hard way on
Yeah.
that exact
Yeah.
same thing.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, and it because I feel like everybody in the recovery community, we're such lovers, right? Like you even said it. I tell everybody I love them, but I have so much love for this community and the individual people that I know that, yeah, I care about individuals. I care about people. And I feel like people who have been through hell and been through, the trenches of addiction, our hearts are so big. And that can be our downfall too.
Yeah. Amazing. Thanks for telling us your story.
yeah.
Heck yeah.
That's really cool. I'm gonna do a selfless plug about Utah being the #1 recovery place in the state, and I want to highlight that. So in September, just to keep you guys aware, I'm riding my pedal bike from Salt Lake to St. George. There's a race called Salt to Saint. It's a relay, but I'm going to do it solo. And so my plan is to have all the recovery communities from here to St. George support me
Well,
in
that's
this
cool.
ride through like social media. We'll try to get the news and everybody involved, and have everybody
Rad.
launch me at the starting line, and then 24, 48 hours later, however long it takes me to ride that far, catch me in St. George down there with Jared Miller. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him. He's going to be a part of it. And so if you guys want to
That's recovery month.
fly a flag, exactly.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
every time I stop, I'm going to be talking about how Utah, and I'll hopefully gain nationwide, at least an eye on
Yeah.
Utah, so that because I believe that Utah, like we said earlier, I don't haven't experienced other states, but
I might be
from what I'm
biased.
experiencing, yeah.
I might be a little biased, but
Right.
I've spoken at lots of conferences about like alternatives to incarceration and the recovery community, and there are not a lot of states that are like Utah that I've
Yeah.
learned
Mhm.
being at these conferences nationwide.
Same.
So I agree with you 100%.
Yeah,
And we'll be there to support you.
heck yeah. I did one in Montana, same thing, little conference, and it's like, you guys you aren't getting what Utah's getting.
Yeah.
Then in Philadelphia, Soul Recovery, who's a cool little sister organization of the Other Side Academy, are just really tight, learning from them, and they're battling stuff in that state that our state is helping with in a different way. And it's just, man, Utah's awesome.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I love it. So Clean Slate Utah, let's talk about the processes and clearing expungements, and just walk us through all that stuff.
This is Char's everyday job. So as the executive director, my job is I wear lots of different hats, right?
Yeah.
But Char is a case manager, and she helps people from beginning to end. So I would like her to speak about what her job is.
Cool.
So the first part that we look at, right, is figuring out what you're eligible for. So because we are a small team and we don't have any lawyers on staff, when people come through the intake process, I'll reach out, set up a Zoom, and screen you with the RASA tool. With Amy's a part of that organization. So RASA is essentially legal tech, and it takes your criminal history and puts your charges into like categories or buckets of what you may qualify for.
So this is step 1.
Step 1. Yep.
As to Zoom with you.
Mhm.
And what type of information would you like to see somebody bring to this Zoom meeting?
Honestly, nothing. The only thing that I require is to fill out our intake form. As long as that's done, then I have every piece of information I need
Okay.
to set up a RASA account. It takes maybe 5 minutes, right? And what that will give us is an idea of what you're going to be eligible for. I love that I'm not a lawyer. I love that I don't have to be a lawyer, because I couldn't imagine. But we just make sure that, number one, you're not on probation or parole. You don't have any open or upcoming cases. That is the biggest factor in seeing if you are eligible. Even open plea of abeyance, court probation, that's all considered an open case. So the first thing you have to do is just make sure that you are not actively involved in the court system anymore. And then we'll pull up your RASA screen, depending on what that says, kind of give you more information. But even if at the end of the day we apply to BCI and it's a different outcome, BCI is the Bureau of Criminal Identification. And they, if we think it's going to be like expungement and they say, nope, you're denied, it's a pardon, that's also okay because we have that pathway. So regardless of what the outcome is, we can help support you. But if it's an expungement, I'll kind of give them a heads up on what that looks like. If it's a pardon, I'll ask them to start getting letters of recommendation and start kind of thinking about that. Will be a lot of work. A pardon is a lot of work. And it really is a commitment. And I know it can be overwhelming. We try to take it in chunks, but things you need to start thinking about to prepare for that. And then we just take it one step at a time.
One thing I want to mention is the reason we brought on pardon support. When I took over the organization, we were turning people away who needed pardon support at first. And if somebody needs a pardon, it just means they have too many charges. So let's say they have 6 Class B misdemeanors. Utah, you can only have 4 or 5. So they have too many charges. And so I didn't like turning people away. I'm like, well, let's learn how to do a pardon. So we're knee deep in it right now, learning how to do it.
Beautiful.
We speak with the Board of Pardons. When I say we, Charlotte speaks with the Board of Pardons almost on a weekly basis, asking questions so that we are giving out the right information to the community on what is a pardon, how do you build the packet, what does the pardon Board of Pardons want to see, how do they want it put together, and we're building beautiful relationships with the Board of Pardons. We also partnership with USARA every Thursday, and with BCI. So we have an agreement with BCI that if somebody needs to get their fingerprints, we can fingerprint them. We have a partnership with USARA that every Thursday we are at the USARA location in St. George and Salt Lake City. So people can walk in and be fingerprinted. And we really make that a really welcoming environment, because if you were to go to BCI and get fingerprinted and you had an open case or a warrant, they would arrest you.
Oh yeah.
Right. And if you come to us, we're going to look at your stuff for you. We're going to give you the information you need to get it cleared. We're going to give you a donut if we have any left.
I mean,
we're going to tell you about our own life,
By like 10:30, me and Destiny have eaten a dozen donuts. Okay, maybe just me specifically. It's
like
fine.
we make it really welcoming, inclusive, where people come in and do their fingerprints. It takes 5 minutes, and it's better than sending them to a police station if they don't have to, or BCI, government agency, if they don't have to.
You guys are just being peer supports during the whole process.
Yeah. I mean, I think the best part of our job is we get to hear about the worst day of their life, but also the best day of their life and how they've overcome that, right? Because expungement really is the last step to somebody changing their life. They have to do all these changes before then. They have to remain crime-free for 3 to 10 years, depending on the charge. DUI is 10 years waiting period. So people have changed, we get to see that change in person, and it's great.
What's Gish saying? Is this only for Utah? Unfortunately, this is a Utah thing. So it's Clean Slate Utah here in the house.
We only help with Utah charges. However, there are 12 states in the nation that have a clean slate law. New York is the newest state. So if you want to know if
you have all the states memorized.
No. I was just you can go to the cleanslateinitiative.com and they'll have all of them listed. But there is a campaign to try to get it nationwide. And
type that in the comment section real quick, Xylem. Clean Slate Initiative.com.
Yep.
Cleanslateinitiative.com, Gish, and you can check that out. He's been on our program for following our program for.
But Clean Slate Utah only helps with Utah charges.
Yeah.
Every state has their own expungement laws, what they allow, what they don't allow. We can give you a resource to another state, but we can only help with Utah.
Copy that.
And no federal. No federal.
Federal, that's a whole nother animal.
A whole nother ball game.
Yeah. Very cool. Okay, so step 1, they meet with you. They filled out our intake paperwork. You're going to help them go through BCI.
Yeah. So after we see what you're potentially eligible for, we can pay to apply to BCI for you. It's a $65 application fee. We do have income qualifiers. So if you are over a certain threshold, then we kind of have a conversation about, hey, this is what it's going to look like financially, but we are able to cover the vast majority of individuals. Once we apply to BCI, it's going to be 3 to 4 months before we hear back. Once this law was passed, BCI has just been inundated.
Oh, I mean, slam.
Expungement is up, what, 300? It's huge.
300%.
So you guys are creating jobs
Yeah.
too.
Oh, yeah.
And they're also getting all the automatic expungements they need to also clear. So they have tons and tons of work. I do want to mention the cost that Charlotte is talking about is the government fee cost. We don't charge for our services.
Correct.
But the government, they do have fees associated with the expungement process. And so we can help with those depending on what your income looks like.
So to make it clear for everybody listening, Clean Slate Utah is a nonprofit that's going to freely advise and walk you through these steps. But there are government fees that are attached to processing some of this paperwork because there are people that are processing it that help them pay their bills too. Makes sense.
Once we hear back from BCI, that really directs us on what to do moving forward. Typically what we see, if you are going to be qualified for expungement, BCI will send us back kind of a chart of all your charges. And then we have to petition each individual court. That once the courts get it, they have 60 days, but just to hand the court your paperwork, it's another $150. Even when I recently
Per
did,
case.
I recently did my own expungement, and Clean Slate Utah was able to pay my government fees. I had 3, and it was well over $500. And at this point in life and in the world, people they're not sitting on $500, $1,000 to pay government. And for me, it felt gross to pay more government fees. And that's just my personal thing, but it was really hard to justify spending all this money on things that should have been, some of the time automatically removed anyway. And now you're having to pay $150 when the system should have already removed this from your background. Regardless, once we submit the petitions to the court holds onto it for 60 days for any potential objections. And then at the 60-day mark, the judge will sign it. Once the judge signs it, they notify BCI. BCI removes it from your criminal history. So in total for expungement, you're looking at 6 to 9 months. If you're looking at a pardon, that's different. BCI will send back a denial letter. That denial is the first step in a pardon. To go in front of the board, you have to prove you've exhausted your resources, right? So that means you've applied for expungement and they said no. So that denial letter is proving you've exhausted your resources. So we get the denial letter, and then you start getting police reports, court dockets, pre-sentence investigations, incarceration history, disciplinary action history, and letters of recommendation. The biggest part of it with the board is hearing how you've changed. I love the initial Zoom meetings with people because the vast majority of people are in recovery or have changed their lives so dramatically that it's cool to hear about. So when they go in front of the board, they want to hear about your substance use. They want to hear what you learned from treatment. They want to hear about how you're living your life today versus how you used to. I also kind of let people know that it can be hard. I would utilize your support, your groups, your AA meetings, your therapist, your best friend, because it is hard to look at those police reports. It's hard to think about the things that you've done to people. So it can be a little bit re-traumatizing. You need to be aware going in that it's heavy. It's definitely heavy. That would take probably about a year if you were being really proactive. And then when you apply to the board, they take about 6 months to get back to us and let us know if you're approved for a hearing.
So this is a long process of patience.
Yeah.
And I don't know, just my personality type, I would be looking at this last step as my last bit of consequences of the behavior I was acting in. This is what I brought upon myself. That's what I'd be telling myself,
Yeah.
We have a really good board of pardons right now. They're really trauma informed. They're really gentle in those board meetings. They ask hard questions, but they're not, it's not like you're sitting in front of a board of cops, right? They're really trauma informed, and we have a really good board of pardons right now.
That's cool. So I want to back up real quick. So we're on to step 2-ish but when I got hired on base, I was always told you're going to need to eventually get this expunged. You got the clearance, I never did, and I was like, oh, okay, sure. And what is like a good clear definition of cleaning your slate or whatever, and then expungement and pardon. There's like 3 different, right?
So it'd be the same end result.
Mhm.
So expungement or pardon is just going to be a different method, a different path to clearance. So expungement through the courts, a pardon through the board of
Oh, okay.
pardons.
So the pardon is just you're going through bigger gatekeepers,
Yep.
more strict
Yeah, and
gatekeepers.
then once you get granted that, it's actually an expungement. So it's all
Oh.
expungement, right? The board just has to.
So what's the
agree to it.
definition of expungement?
Getting your record cleared?
Like
So it's gone.
Yeah.
It's not sealed. It's not anything like that.
it's as if you never committed
Correct.
that.
Legally, you can say that you have not been convicted of a crime. So it removes it from the court database. It removes it from the law enforcement agency database. It removes it from the FBI. Caveat,
Heavy, really?
if you were to go get national security clearance or some federal level security clearance, they're going to be able to see it. There are also some jobs in the state of Utah that can pull those charges as well, depending on what you're doing, right? If you're working with a vulnerable population, DOPL, they may be able to find some of those charges. It just depends on the type of job you're going for. But for, 85, 90% of people, that's never going to come up.
Sure.
Being as you brought up DOPL, I want to mention, like, when you go in front of DOPL, it's
What is DOPL?
the Department of Professional Licensing. So if you're going to school to be a therapist or whatever, and you have to go
okay.
get a business license
Gotcha.
and you have a criminal record, they're going to want to see your court dockets, your police reports. They want you to essentially build a packet for them, which is almost the same type of packet you would build for the Board of Pardons. So don't throw that away. If you do that, keep it, and let's try for a pardon to get it
Sure.
completely cleared.
Okay. Very cool. Okay, so where were we?
I think she went through the entire process.
Okay.
Yeah, she went through the
I did.
entire
Yeah.
process. Yeah.
But really, I think that for me, I try not to give all of the information like at one time because people hear it and it sounds so overwhelming. It's a long process, but I mean, you can call me. We also did like a how-to video. Grant Miller is a lawyer that helped us do that. So we actually have a how-to video on expungement.
Credit to you.
Awesome. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, for sure. But that has been incredibly helpful. And because we have such a small team, right now it's Destiny and then myself and Jill, another intake coordinator or case manager down in St. George. So we have a lot of people that we're trying to care for. So we try to remind people to be patient with us.
Be kind. We're very, very
Please be
small.
kind.
We have hundreds, if not thousands of
Yeah.
people that we're working with, and we're really, really small.
So a good takeaway from that is if the expungement process seems scary, which it always seemed very vague to me, like, okay, expungement, whatever that means. I don't even know, where do I go? 7-Eleven, where do I get? Now we have a clear path here in Utah, Clean Slate Utah. And if you think anything, I have a saying we always say when we pack up our stuff, it's always better to have it and not need it, and need it to not,
For sure.
So if you are curious about your record and you really want to pursue this, know that you're in for a long haul. It's a patience test, but at least see what is available to you. Let these girls figure out whether there's a hard stop in your record or not.
Right.
Knowledge is power.
Yeah.
Power yourself with the knowledge of your own background and know where you're at. Know if you have a waiting period. Know if you don't. Know what you can get started on. But also know by coming through Clean Slate Utah, we are going to expect you to put in work as well.
Yeah.
We're not lawyers. We don't do it for you. We will show you how, but we do expect you to do
Your guides.
to do that work as well.
I find that to be empowering though.
Mhm.
I mean, because the people that are doing the paperwork, when I went through my own expungement, it allowed me to feel like I had some control in the system where I had never had any power. I had never had any voice. So filing my own paperwork and writing on there what I wanted the judge to hear about me was really helped who I am as a human. It made me feel like I was finally on equal playing ground with the courts. So doing that work is really empowering to the individual too, because you had control over it. You had a foot in the whole part of it. It's not like someone just built this beautiful pardon packet for you and they said, here you go. I mean, you get to put in the work and you get to feel that accomplishment. And it's kind of with everything in recovery, right? It's not immediate gratification. It's delayed and it takes work, but that makes it so much sweeter and so much more wonderful when you get to the other side of it.
Yep. Delayed gratification. Boy, learning that's been tough.
Yeah, it sucks.
I did this
sucks.
thing back when my 2 oldest boys were young, and you've probably heard of this before, but I think they're like 5 and 4, maybe 4 and 3. But I put a marshmallow in front of each one of them, and I said, if you eat this, you can have it. It's yours. Sit down, eat it if if you want to. I said, but if you sit here for 5 minutes and you don't eat it, I'll give you 2.
Ooh.
And so, and the difference between him and my oldest son was just night and day. My oldest son sitting there like, and they're little kids at this time, but him, he's like, what, I get 2? All right.
Yep.
And just sat back. And then, okay, so 5 minutes went by. There you go. You both get 2. I said, now you can eat them if you want to, but if you wait 10 minutes, you'll have 3.
Yep.
I just did this for a minute, just to see. And I've watched it play out in their life. They're both 18 and 19 now. And the choices they've both made have proven, because he's the one that was really delayed his gratification to have more. My other son was like, I'm good. I'll have 2.
I'm good with this amount.
And his life has proved it out. Like to this day, it's very crazy. So, but delayed gratification and something in recovery, and that's the process at Clean Slate Utah.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to happen overnight. You're not going to. They're so busy. BCI is so busy. The law is brand new. Everybody's starting to really become aware of how easy it is now to have access to cleaning your slate. And
it wasn't so accessible before.
No,
you heard about expungement, but nobody knew.
Met you guys.
Yeah. Even when I did apply to BCI, I walked in there and I paid $65. I got fingerprinted and then I walked out. So what happens after this? What do I do? I had no clue that 4 months later I would get an email. If you miss that email, you start all over. And it was just frustrating. I had no clue what came after that first step. We've done events like the Clean Slate Summit where individuals will come, sit down with a lawyer, apply to BCI. And a lot of people had the misunderstanding that it was a one-stop shop. The expungement day meant you got expunged that day. So I think the biggest takeaway now is that this is a process. Nothing is done in one day. Nothing is done in 1 month. It's a process. But when I went through this before Clean Slate, I had no idea what was next. And just the verbiage alone,
that daunting expungement guide that they send out with your letter is like
it makes zero sense.
Yeah.
And I do this all day. I mean, their instructions I don't understand, and this is what I do for a living.
Yeah.
That's been a big journey that we've had to just make this easier to understand and in English and in human terms that don't feel so far away and so alienating.
Yeah. So you said you're waiting for an email after you get your fingerprints, around 4 months later it comes back. Are you all CC'd on these emails now and you help keep track, or?
So we do have them fill out a third-party release so that the information comes to us.
Okay.
And then we can send out in the most simplest language that we can what the next steps are and to guide them through that.
Okay.
So on that email, since it comes directly to me, our inboxes are just with BCI, right? So the odds of you losing it in your inbox where we get 100 spam emails a day and you've got 1,000 emails sitting in there, it comes directly to us so that we can then take the initiative and create that document that you need, so they don't get lost. I mean, of course, errors could still conceivably happen.
Yeah. But it's still up to the person to first get that email. But if they're like,
no, we get it.
We get it.
You'll get it first.
We do it.
I don't need to look for this email.
No, they would do a third-party release with the application, and therefore, if it doesn't come in 3 to 4 months, we can call on behalf of the person because we have that third-party release. If we need something fixed on their letter or something is an error, we can call on behalf of them. So we get it, and then we notify you.
I gotta hand it to you guys because to track something through a system, like I've worked for the government before, I get it. But to track something for, what you're looking at, 1.5 years,
yeah,
that's a lot of good work and organization skills. So whatever system you guys are setting up.
I mean, it's been a learning. It's been a journey.
It's a curve. We're still pretty new. We've only been at this 2 years. We're still learning.
Are you
get out?
Y'all getting efficient in Excel and like that kind of stuff?
Can we not talk about charts? Listen, I need to take like a class. Sheets because. Especially when I started working for Destiny, I had never had like a computer job, right? Like my word per minute typing factor was just, it was not great. I was pecking. So I had to sit there and do all these typing tests online. And now me and Destiny are both really efficient typers, but no, computers has been a learning journey for me and for Destiny too. There's systems that we have had to take time and get trainings and go out of our way to learn because it does make life so much easier, but it was not a given. Like
Walking into a nonprofit organization that was brand new, didn't have policies and procedures. And these are things that we have figured out ourselves and what's going to be best for tracking, what's not going to be best for tracking. It's really trial and error, but I think we're pretty effective with the small staff that we have and the tools that we do have. We're getting people through the process. Last year, we cleared over 700 records.
Wow.
Just last year. And these are individuals that are taking the initiative to do it themselves.
In a year's time, you've cleared 700. So you
Yeah.
divide that by 365, you're clearing 3 or 4 a day.
Yeah.
You guys are awesome.
Was you a drug dealer? Because you did that math pretty quick. And that's just getting started. This is as we're starting learning. So now that we're really up and running, we are short staffed at the moment, but these guys work hard. I mean, everybody works so hard every day to answer the questions that are being asked, to get people through the paperwork. It's an uphill battle. Everybody's record is different. Therefore, things arise that we've never had to deal with before that we work through as a team, and we're figuring it out.
Yeah, I hope everybody out there is understanding what they're putting together, what they're going through, because I think that's undervalued. Like what's really happening behind the scenes, like building systems. Well, learning, building is.
And then also creating these relationships with these government agencies and building relationships with people, the Board of Pardons, like these are, and recovery community centers and recovery centers. And we're building relationships statewide on top of helping you clear your record at the same time. So
amazing. So
we're
if you guys
busy.
call and you're angry and
please don't.
you let me know, okay? I'll set them straight. Like this.
The vast majority of people that we deal with are kind.
I'm sure.
Most of them are confused. It's a confusing process.
Government could be so frustrating.
It's
really
so frustrating. So I've recently learned that BCI, who I always thought of was infallible, they're not. And that can be
what infallible means.
Yeah. So in my head, I thought since BCI are the people that hold the records, right, that they're always going to be right, that it's not possible for them to fudge it up because they have the records. Well, that is not true. And so I can't just take what they send me as the end all be all. I have to do my own research. So that's kind of where I can get into the weeds, because BCI can send us wrong certificate numbers, or they can send us a denial that we have to appeal. I recently found that on criminal histories, they can be incorrect. So it's been a learning curve of learning what is, the end all be all, and then what we need to question, what we need to do the research on. So it can get really tricky and into the weeds. That's why I say I'm glad I'm not a lawyer. That would just be too much knowledge from my brain, and I would spiral.
Whether it's our organization or BCI, it's humans behind the desk, and there are mistakes. People make mistakes. Just like we're helping them clear their mistakes. We make mistakes sometimes, and so does BCI. It's what happens.
I think it's important to also state that if you are going through expungement, there's also a time limit, because we've started to get past a year, right? So once you receive your letter back from BCI and we send it to you, you have 6 months.
So there's a clock that ticks.
Yes.
As soon as you hit the submit button, you're looking at.
So once they
upon
respond
receipt.
to you,
Yeah.
upon receipt.
And then boom, TikTok.
Yeah.
6 months.
6 months to do your paperwork and pay the government fees.
One thing I've kind of noticed with the government and applications and job interviews and all that kind of stuff, it's kind of set up as a gatekeeper in a way to only make sure that the serious get through, and which I think is a good thing.
Yeah.
Or everybody's just going to flood and crinkle the system,
Yeah. I mean, I'm an advocate for free fees for all.
Yeah.
Especially with expungement fees. Like these people have done their time. They've completed their probation and parole. They've remained crime free for 3 to 10 years. They paid all their fines, fees, restitution.
They've served their debt to society. Yeah.
I don't think that we should be charging government fees on top of that, which is another barrier for people to move on with their lives. It's good. Expungement is good for our economies. It's good for our workforce. It's good for public safety. It's good for families. It's good for everyone. Well, I just went out on a tangent.
I liked it.
That's good. We just need to go.
It's good for everyone. Like we should let people get their records cleared and move on.
Agreed. We just need to tell the government to reallocate some of the funds to be able to process for free. Like what?
It's something I advocate for each and every year, and I will continue to advocate.
Things, how much money is it really?
Well, I'll break it down for you. The application fee is a non-waivable fee at $65. Each certificate from BCI that you get is an additional $65, and then each filing fee can be up to $150 per case.
But still,
So
in
my
the
expungement was
government
like
scheme of things-
$3,000.
Yeah. So say, what's the average? Maybe 25, 22,
It depends on charges. I mean, everybody's so different, but
1,000 to 3.
yeah.
You're looking at.
Yeah.
And then if you do that 700 a year, you're looking at 7,000 or 70,000.
You're the
70.
mathematician.
So like $70,000.
Yeah. So in the grand
year.
in the grand scheme of things, it is a drop in the bucket.
What I'm getting at is like, come on,
Yeah.
government. Like
Yeah.
in the it's a drop in the bucket.
Right.
Reallocate some.
But then their wages go up by 23%. They're 67% more likely to get that job interview.
Yeah.
So it all goes back into the economy. People are transitioning off of government benefits,
It's
getting
an
better
investment.
jobs,
Yeah.
getting health insurance, being able to volunteer at the kids' school, adopt children, have a great life. You know,
Mhm.
I'm passionate about this.
Yeah.
This is a hill I will die on.
I'm marching
and
uphill
I-
with you right now.
I advocate for this every legislative session, and I will continue to do that.
Oh, I'm glad you said that.
I was like, yeah, that's our next conversation.
What was it? SBO 163?
SB 163 was a bill that we ran this session that would allow for people who are working with a nonprofit organization or a public benefit corporation to not have to pay any government fees associated with expungement. However, the bill, we got a small win out of the bill, but we didn't get what we wanted. What we did get out of the bill was if you have a family, so right, and let me back up.
Yeah. What was it for? What was it about? And why were you going? Why was this on the table?
He wasn't listening to me.
I was texting.
So this bill, essentially, the way it was written and the way we wanted it to go was if you're working with a nonprofit organization
Oh, okay.
or a public benefit corporation that are helping low income individuals navigate the expungement process, you wouldn't have to pay government fees.
Okay.
So that was how it was written. And shout out to Senator Stevenson and Representative Clancy. They were our sponsors. We were able to get a win. It wasn't the win that we wanted, but we did get a win. The win was right now in Utah, if you're 150% or below the federal poverty level, which is $20,000 a year, you can get your government fees waived. Now it's if you have a family size up to 3, you can make up to $38,000 a year and get your government fees waived. That's all we got this year. It's a small little win.
It's a win.
It's a win. This is something that we're going to have to keep advocating for.
Yeah.
And hopefully all these little wins year after year will end up being a big win.
Yeah.
So that will take effect in May.
Okay.
Yeah.
So some of those at 38,000 and below with 3 kids and stuff. Can
So
get
like
these
if you're a
fees
single
waived.
person coming through, you can make up to 38,000. If you're a family of 2, you can make up to 38,000. A family of 3,
Okay.
a family of 4 and above is still 150 or below.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a small win. It will help a bucket of people.
Do you think that they're still just kind of got their eye on it, watching it, or
This is a really tricky
we're getting
question
political
to
here?
answer. We have some state representatives that truly believe if somebody's done their crime, they should do their time, and
The time
all the
is
fees
all
and
the
government
way.
fees, no matter what it is.
Yeah.
And that one legislator got in the way.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wonder if people like that have just not experienced.
That's how I feel. Because especially we've even heard that if you help people expunge their record, then they'll just go out and reoffend. We have helped hundreds of people, probably thousands of people, and I have only seen that happen once.
That makes no
Once.
sense.
It doesn't make
Yeah.
sense. I mean, this has been something that's been a burden on us, and logically it doesn't match up, right? They have to wait 5, 7, 10 years to get their charges expunged. So we've heard that argument that it'll encourage people to reoffend.
Clean record.
I mean,
now.
they
could
think
go
it.
with
Right, I'm gonna go catch new
incentivizes-
charges.
She thinks it's an incentivizes criminal activity, and people will be like, "I could do whatever." I'll tell you, my addiction I did was not thinking about expungement at all.
Oh,
I mean, if you are in Davis County or Syracuse, I would encourage you to write your representative
okay. Gotcha.
who's up for re-election this year.
Oh, really? So I know who not to vote for.
The political side of this has been hard because there are some people that believe that people shouldn't have a pathway to expungement. There are some courts, some prosecutors that
Yeah.
object to everything. I got an objection. There's still a certain group of people that stigmatize criminals and people in recovery. And
And we have tons of allies. I mean, our sponsor, Tyler Clancy, is a cop. He's a cop, and he's passionate about letting people move forward, do the expungement process. He was our bill sponsor,
Mhm.
We have a lot of allies. I think in Utah, we're We're putting it on the map about expungement. Utah was the second state in the nation to pass the Clean Slate legislation.
Cool.
We're all red state.
Mhm.
I think we're making waves, and
Yep.
we have a lot of allies.
That's awesome. Geesh just said you guys are modern day saints.
Thank you.
Honestly, I think the gratitude that we get from people too is what keeps me going. I mean,
Mhm.
we're not in a super fancy industry where we're, just making, stacks and have some super lucrative career, but the reward and how it fuels my soul, like, has been, it just, people are so, so grateful. And even just hearing those words or getting an email saying, Charlotte, thank you so much for help. That's what it's about, right? Like, that makes me feel good about what I'm doing every single day. And it makes me want to continue when stuff's really hard, right? When
Yeah.
it's, because there are days that there's so many people you're managing and
Mhm.
it's super overwhelming, but then you get that one email that's like, dude, you got me through this and I'm so grateful. And it just, that's what changes your whole day, your whole week, your whole year.
Yeah, I think for me, as I'm meeting with legislators and I'm meeting with the top people in our state, and they walk in with a different view, and they, after speaking to me and hearing my story,
Mm,
and then the organization I'm running, they walk out with a whole nother view. Like,
paradigm shifter.
it's
Yeah.
using your stories to get what you want.
Yeah.
I mean, you're using that same manipulation that you used on the street, right? But now you're
Yeah.
using it in a positive way to make the
Absolutely.
change. It's
educational
so
knowledge.
important. People just need to sit down and talk to people.
Yeah. Agreed.
If you sit down and talk to people and see what really happens, 1 in 4 people have a criminal record in Utah. So I'm sure that everybody knows somebody who has a criminal record,
Oh yeah.
and that can be helped.
And I've learned that nobody is untouched by addiction either.
Oh no.
I haven't met one
No.
person yet.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
Yeah.
There's people a little further than others, but
Oh, I've had so many people in elected officials and legislation and that have pulled me aside to help somebody in their family or
Oh, yeah.
somebody in their family. It is so common.
yeah, that's funny. Like you were talking about, we're not ballers and making big money or whatever. But my definition of success has changed
Mhm.
Yeah.
from post addiction, and then it happened right, as soon as I decided to get help. But my lifestyle is what I'm after now, not the ability to pay bills and
Yeah.
have RVs and whoop-de-doo.
Yeah.
That stuff is not cool to me anymore.
No.
Like, my success is when I wake up. We have 2 people in our program right now that are about to graduate, and it takes a good year and a half to graduate recovering addict. And we talk about, who they were when they first walked through our door, pale, gray, missing teeth.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
To now they're physically fit. They've shed some pounds. They're running their life, and it's like they are not who they used to be.
Yeah.
And those moments, man, it's just like, whoa, that's
Yeah.
why I do this.
For
Yeah.
sure. Well, and it's so different too, especially since my struggle was really centralized around mental health. I woke up every day mad. I woke up
Oh.
every day pissed that I woke up. Like, why? I didn't want to be here. I didn't want to do this anymore. And I wake up every day now and I'm happy. Like, I genuinely am happy. And I didn't even know that was a thing. I thought people that said they were happy were full of it. Like, I just assumed everybody was lying.
Yeah.
Or you've got better drugs than I do. How are you actually happy? And so now waking up and I'm happy, and I look forward to, helping the people at my work and helping the people through sober living. And it just, success is way different. Helping people get their life back together is an amazing thing for anybody.
Yeah. Go to the app thing and hit connect, and then hit USB. Yeah, I agree.
That's right.
I love helping people, and I love waking up happy,
Yeah.
not chasing some. I don't know. We're kind of bred into it, or groomed, whatever you want to call it. Go to school, go to college, get a job, pay your bills, get your credit score, work for retirement. And that's the American dream now, right? I 4 years ago, I lost my mind punching a clock,
Yeah.
trading my time for money, and I lost it. And that's when I sold my house. I had a house up in Pleasant View. I sold it, scraped all the money off the top. We downsized everything. We had nice cars. We were making payments, like
Right.
big deal, and it's that whole, what are you willing to sacrifice, materialistically, that you think's making you happy, to live an actual life of success that is making you happy.
Yeah.
And that's what kind of my wife and I did. And we moved into like a little 2-bedroom apartment, all
Oh, yeah.
5 of us, just start over. I
Yeah.
just started over. And now my life is so much more satisfying after making that type of a move, that
Yeah. And you're probably so grateful.
Oh, every day,
Yeah.
even like a bad day. Because, like you said earlier, I mean, it's still work.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
some work going on here. But man, my worst days are still better than my best days.
Yeah.
By leaps and bounds. And
Huge.
Destiny will give me grief sometimes too. When I walked into Odyssey, just how we look when we're at our low, like
Oh, yeah.
it just, I mean,
I watched Charlotte through her whole entire process because I worked there. I watched the way she came in. I watched when her brain fog went away and she started working. I watched how dedicated she was and everything that she did.
Mhm.
So when the opportunity arose and I was talking to Randall Carlisle from Odyssey House, and he's like, Charlotte's getting out soon. I'm like, do you know anybody who needs a job? Like, I need to hire somebody temporary. I just took over. We're drowning. And he said, Charlotte. And I was like, hell yes. Absolutely.
That's so cool.
Absolutely. And I've had her since, and she ain't
Yeah.
going anywhere.
I don't think so.
I'm very, very grateful for our relationship, for our job, and for the people that we help. But even the reason that I'm still managing a sober living too is because when you see people make that shift, and it's a paradigm shift that they don't have to verbalize, you just see it. All of a sudden, people start walking differently. They start holding it. Just it's so. I mean, I'm not a super spiritual person, but seeing that in somebody, it gives me goosebumps.
It's
like
beautiful, man.
It's
so
there's
beautiful.
nothing like it in the world. I mean, and it's because that change is deep too. Like that person is forever changed, whether they go back and have an instance of use or go all the way back out. It doesn't matter. That still is a part of them now, and that lesson. And it just, it's amazing to think about how far, Destiny's come and how far you've come, and people that we would have never recognized 10 years ago. Completely different humans.
I mean, my family's always telling me, you are so cool and collected these days. Cause I was a hot mess,
Yeah.
Like I never thought you would change. Like I never in the wildest dreams ever thought you would change.
Yeah.
Change is possible.
Yeah.
And you can be somebody totally new.
Yep. I love it too, on top of like just this black and white change. But people, all of a sudden, you guys will both have to have some type of entrepreneur mindset. You're very self-motivated, and you're making
big dreams, man.
Yeah, I can tell, and I love it because I'm the same way. I'm like, what can we do next? How can we make it bigger? How can we make it better, faster, stronger? You know what I mean? And that's what y'all are doing. Like, I can see your company in 5-10 years just being something just amazing.
Do you know any donors? We need some money.
Yeah, we do too.
Like we have, we are a nonprofit. We're not ran on any government assistance or any government funding. Our biggest contributor is the Miller Family Foundation. They support the work that we do. I was able to sit down and have a lunch with them and talk to them person to person, and they've been supporting us ever since. We do get support from the Clean Slate Initiative. That's the federal campaign that's pushing Clean Slate Initiative across the nation.
Does that have a timeline on it?
They're trying to get a clean slate law passed in the next 5 years in all the 5 to 10 years, I think, in all the states. It's a huge campaign. It's getting a lot of traction. But for Utah, we are built on grants, contributions. So if you've gone through the expungement process and your income has changed and you can afford an extra $100, send us a donation for helping you. If you know any grants we can apply for, please let us know.
Yep.
And the grants that we are trying to get is to help people with the government fees.
Okay.
That's solely what we want to do, is help people pay those government fees, because we know once they get to that point in the process, they're going to fall off because they don't have the extra thousands of dollars sitting in their bank within 6 months to pay it, and we want to see people get all the way to the end.
So if we could get like a GoFundMe, for lack of better words, and stack a bank account behind you guys to help people come through this system. Oh, genius. I love it.
Well, and even, sorry,
because as we're like spitting money out, helping people with the government fees, it is eating up a big part of our budget.
Okay.
And that's the biggest part of the budget, is helping people with the government fees. That's why it's a hill I'm going to die on, is advocating to change legislation around this issue so more people can get through the process. Because that is the most and biggest barrier we have, is the financial barrier for expungement. We can teach people all day long.
Yeah.
Charlotte's really good about sitting down with them and putting it in really simple language, showing them how to do it. We have the simple how-to video that you did with Grant Miller. Like we can get people through the process. It's the financial barrier.
Yeah.
1000%. And it's such a frustrating conversation when people are over our income qualifiers, but you never know somebody's situation, debt to income ratio, what, trying to clean up their past. And that it becomes really difficult. And I've had to shift and say, okay, well, I can submit your petitions 2 this week. I'll do 2 when you get paid again. Because we're getting to a point where government fees, we spent what, 100,000, 80,000 last year?
Just in government fees for a small nonprofit. Like, we're a very, very small nonprofit.
Yeah.
We spend more in government fees than I spend paying my employees.
Whoa.
And the need that we have is building and building and building. We're the only organization that helps people self-navigate the process, that they can go and learn how to do it, that they can give them their information. That doesn't charge for their services. And so we are getting busier and busier, and we don't have enough staff to, if we keep growing the way that we're growing, to help the people we need to help, because we're helping people with government fees as well.
How could people donate to you?
They can go to cleanslateutah.org, and there's a donate button on our webpage. You can donate that way.
Okay, cool.
We also have a Venmo. It's Clean Slate Utah.
Clean Slate Utah. Okay.
The really cool thing too, though, is I can have conversations with our applicants and talk really openly and honestly about, hey, tell me if you can afford this. What does this look like for you? And people have been really forthcoming. Like, yes, I can afford this. Save that money for somebody else. And I'm so grateful that people have that transparency and that honesty and integrity, that they can tell me, Shar, I can afford this. Thank you. Because we've got people that absolutely cannot. And we'll do fee waivers if you are on government benefits, but it's really wonderful when people will just be open and honest and say, you know what, I got this. And it's not, that money's just going directly to the court. So it's not anything where you have to feel weird about it. It's really nice that people feel like they can trust us and be open about it. I think part of what our lived experience has helped with too is we can talk about our criminal history, right? I'm not on some pedestal. I'm not different than anybody else. I was a prostitute on the streets, like had a great criminal history too. It's not, nobody's coming from a place of superiority. We're just all in this together as a family, and we're just trying to get to the other side.
And if we talk about legal fees, I mean, it's expensive to hire a lawyer. And so we're showing these people how to do it without hiring a lawyer. And so a lot of these people can pay a portion or some of it. But there are a lot of people that are not in a situation to have an extra $65 even, because of the cost of living, inflation, working a low-level job and not making enough money. They have a family to feed. And so it's important for us to try to help people get past that and gain better opportunities.
All right. Well, thank you, guys. That's awesome. I'm really proud of the work you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any way we can help, our nonprofit's behind yours. And
Ditto.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having us.
You're welcome. Is there anything else you want to make sure people know that how to get a hold of you? And
so easiest way to get a hold of us would just be to go to cleanslateutah.org, and right under our video, there's our intake form. Once you fill that out, I'll reach out to you.
Okay.
It'll be about 3 to 4 weeks before we reach out, because of we're short staffed and
patience is the game.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, y'all. You ready, Zala? Thanks for tuning in. This is Recovering Addict. And remember, do not put yourself in a high-risk situation. Stay strong, work your programs, and remember, we recover better together.
We were talking